Hey everybody, Sherry Ferguson here with the Portland Chamber of Commerce. It's been a little while since we had some live interviews, but I felt it was time to come back and let's hear a little bit about our schools. We have with us Scott Langford, who is the Assistant Director of Instruction.
Mhm.
It's a long
It's
title.
a long title, long title. That's great.
So let me congratulate you first thing on your award for Supervisor of the Year for Sumner County from the state of Tennessee. Is that correct?
Well, our county chooses, and then we go on to regional and state competition. But I'm honored, and honestly, it's just a reflection of the people that we have. Because realistically, the work that's being done at the school level and in classrooms and under me and my department is just phenomenal. So it's more about them than it is anything that I do.
Well, everybody has to have a leader, and a leader is usually shown. A good leader is in reflection of who is following and helping them. Because again, they lift us up, they help us to do
Yeah.
what we do. So I definitely understand that. One thing, let's start on a topic of what is actually your role, especially during this time. I mean, we've
hmm
had a crazy time that everybody's role is completely different. But what is
hmm
your actual role there at the Sumner County School Board?
So, as you mentioned, I'm over instruction. So, this year it's been a little different, obviously, because we carry roles way beyond because there's so much. I would liken COVID leadership to wartime leadership, except in a war you're usually overseas or somewhere where all you do is fight. Where this time everybody has their families and their friends, and you're trying to manage home life with work. And I think, and I'm sure businesses feel the same pressure as, COVID puts pressure on every aspect of your organization, and you very readily and quickly identify weak spots. So a chunk of our jobs is to find those areas where we have to plug holes. But for me, primarily, my job this year has been to make sure that our kids are receiving the very best education regardless of their modality. So whether they're learning at home on hybrid partially, or whether they're fully virtual, or whether they're in classrooms every day, making sure that we continue to push out high quality instruction and instructional materials and to support our teachers and principals. We're very blessed in Sumner County. I can say this. I can say this, that our Portland schools have fantastic principals and leadership, and they work together. They do great things. They support each other. And so, part of my job is to make sure that they have everything that they need so that they're supported in delivering to their teachers and to our kids what they need.
Well, and as we had talked, this has been a trying year for parents and teachers and
Mhm.
students and all aspects of everybody in there. Again, what happens in your personal life also is brought to school, just like it's brought to work. And so when someone is, whether they're sick at
Mhm.
home or they're struggling because somebody doesn't have a job at home, they bring that into their school, whether it's in their academics, they can't focus. And so I feel like that they've had a lot of things that they've had to adapt to. But let's talk a little bit about how the teachers have worked during the hybrid, because I know that we have a lot of parents with students that have been going through this, but there's also a lot of people out there watching that just know that they've been struggling, but don't know how the process has worked. So what has been the process for this online school that they've had to do? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Hold on. You're muted.
Okay, let me try the AirPods again. I'm sorry. I
You
thought it
were
was my
muted.
okay.
You're good.
Okay, great. So we have kids that their families chose to go completely virtual, and so in elementary, we were able to just flip teachers. So if you were going to have a fully face-to-face class, now you have a fully virtual class. That was the easiest, and so those kids learn at home and pretty much have a regular school day, just a mix of Zoom and off-channel activities, because obviously, especially with elementary kids, you don't want them sitting in front of a device for 6.5 hours a day straight. Huge set of needs for teachers and for kids and for parents to adjust to that. But I think they've really adjusted well. Middle school, because of the numbers and the subject specificity, um, in middle school, you're starting to get into more focused math and English and things like that. So the teachers, a teacher may have 5 periods of regular face-to-face instruction and then 1 period of virtual where they work with students learning at home. And then high school, because I think in the fall we offered 105 different courses, we can't staff that with a teacher, and we have to match kids' schedules so that they can continue to progress towards graduation. So we use a program called Edgenuity. We do provide interaction with Sumner County teachers. We have a tutoring system where the kids can request a tutoring session, and then they'll meet in 15 to 30-minute increments with a Sumner County teacher. So it's a little bit different based on grade band. So that's how virtual looks. Then hybrid, we split in middle school and high school. Our elementary kids have pretty much been in school full time since about the second week of August, which you cannot get elementary time back. You have to try to stay in school as much as you can. It's best for kids. But middle school and high school, where we have larger classes, we've tried to split until next week. Thankfully, we're really glad to be coming back. But so basically, a teacher would have half their class on Monday, Thursday, and the other half on Tuesday, Friday, and then on Wednesday, everybody would work on learning at home.
Well, like I say, I know it has been a challenge. Everybody's had to learn a new system. Everybody's had to learn to do things differently. But again, we're learning. So that's part of education. So whether that is going along with how we're progressing. So I know that even in workforce, we had many people that had never been on a Zoom meeting. They never wanted to be a Zoom meeting. And every business that you have has had to adjust and had to learn how to do these things. So again, it's a struggle, but I'm glad that things are looking up and kids are coming back. So I know that there's a lot of questions out there. I know I saw the post for graduation. So the graduation days have been posted and that's in progress. So as things change, so what we have planned for today may not happen. So what are your thoughts on graduation this year?
So our plan, last year, our first time through COVID, we ended up delaying graduation until the last week of June. Our plan right now is to try to conduct graduations as normally as possible. The good thing is having run through last year, we learned a lot about how to manage that. And really, there were some really nice features, I think, that came out of it. I know Portland and White House graduated very similarly at Long Hollow with the kids in one building, and then they came across to get their diplomas on the stage. But they watched interestingly, the kids really enjoyed being in the other building and having their time together. I think for the most part, our plan right now would be to hopefully have as normal a graduation as possible. But the good thing is that if our COVID numbers increase, right now we've been on about an 8 or 9 day steady decline in our numbers, and we're hopeful that will continue. We're also hopeful that vaccinations will become more widespread, and that will help bring our numbers down. So our goal is to have a normal graduation. Whether that'll be the case in May, we've got some time to see. But the plan now is to hold those dates and to have as normal a graduation as possible.
I know that the seniors will be happy to hear that. So the next topic on juniors and seniors' mind is always prom. So are they going to allow prom at this point, or are they going to have to do something different with that?
Yeah, we've started conversations with our principals, and the plan is to try to have prom. What it will look like, it will most definitely look different than in previous years, but there will be, talking to Mr. Woods in Portland and our other principals, the desire is always to keep everything memorable for kids that we can. And, I know especially in Portland, it's been, they do an outstanding job with cultural pieces and student participation. And I know they want to keep that, but, we're probably trying to buy as much time as we can to see where our numbers are, so that we can give the kids as normal a prom as possible is the goal. But, we're probably a few weeks away from any kind of announcements about prom. But I will tell this, for parents and kids, the goal is to have a prom as best we're able.
Well, like I say, I know those are always the top two on the list for those juniors and seniors, and everybody feels like they've not been able to have normal of anything. So I feel like if you could have some type of graduation, some type of prom, you're getting going in the right direction. So, so what do you see this year as the level where the students are coming in for next year? Do you feel like they're all going to be up on where they're supposed to be, or have we talked about what will next year look like?
Mhm. Yeah, I think hopefully, just with regards to COVID, I'm hopeful at that point that we'll have enough vaccines out that that we'll be able to be as normal as possible, and be somewhere. I mean, will it be what we would have called a 2019 norm? Probably not, but hopefully we'll be way closer than we are right now. In terms of learning, we have not, because we've been in school more than almost any of the surrounding counties. Our learning loss is less than we see in a lot of places, especially those counties that have been fully virtual. Their learning loss is pretty substantial. Ours is pretty manageable. It's definitely like what we've seen is as you go higher in school with topics like math, like kids that missed 9 weeks last semester in Algebra 2. There's clearly a gap as they've moved into pre-calc and things like that. So we're going to work hard to try to recapture that. The legislature took action week before last, in special session to create summer learning camps for elementary and middle school kids. We're probably a couple weeks away from, because the legislation was just passed and we're still trying to work through. There are a lot of shalls, shoulds, woulds, do's in there that we've got to try to work through and figure out. But we're excited about the opportunity to be able to offer summer learning options for our families in elementary and middle school. But couple weeks, we'll have a little bit clearer picture of what that's going to look like.
Well, in looking forward, do you feel like the online classes is something that we're going to continue with having that option for maybe even at least high school students for some of these, or is this something that we're hoping it goes away and we never have to come back to that again?
I think, I think we've learned a lot. Like you mentioned learning earlier. I think there are things that will stick that will be positive for parents and for students. I think parent-teacher communication is better than it's ever been. So I think you'll see some of those things hopefully stick. Now, do we want kindergartners and first graders on Zooms a lot? Probably not. We'd like to move away from that a lot, but I think you'll see definitely online education will be a part of what we do. I think especially in high school. I think one of the things that we can do is, for instance, it's always a challenge to get higher level math taught across the county to get teachers that are qualified to teach, but we can use technology to leverage what we have in other schools so that your zip code doesn't dictate your opportunities. And like right now, we have 6 teachers across Sumner County that are videoing AP classes so that we can, so that if you're at, say Westmoreland High School or Portland High School, and there's a class that's not offered at your school, but we have it at Beach or Hendersonville, we'll be able to have, one of our best AP teachers in the county teach it, and our kids will be able to take that class at their school of zone. So it'll, if we can do things to increase our course offerings so our kids have the same opportunities regardless of where they are in the county, that's something that we absolutely want to keep doing.
Right. That is always a challenge when you have a county as large as ours, and there's so many different areas that just making everybody be able to take the same level of classes is a challenge, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we want, like we've done a lot of work in the past to help kids that are struggling to graduate get across the finish line to graduate, and we want to continue to do that. But we also want to look at those kids that excel and provide them even more opportunities to push farther, and of course, so that they can roll into college with more college experience, more college credits to help them figure out what they want to do with their career. I'm also very excited. I don't know if everybody's seen the press release, but Chase Moore, that is our CTE supervisor. Chase is outstanding. Well, we added, even in pandemic year, we added 15 new career pathways this year, which makes us we now have 25, which makes us the #1 district in the state. And what those pathways do is it's course sequences that move a kid from where they start in high school towards a career progression. So some schools just added marketing management. So sometimes it's nursing, cosmetology, different things, but we have 25 of those that are spelled out across the county that really provide our kids either industry certification or the next step into college and career.
We do have a great program for CTE, any type of that on-hands learning. with the COVID challenges and the not being able to be in class all the time, I know that was an area that was a huge struggle because when you're trying to teach welding, you have to be in class to teach welding. So,
Yeah.
so how have you been able to overcome some of that and make that happen? And another area might be even your nursing, because we have a great nursing program here at Portland where they actually
Right.
go do clinicals. Have they been able to do those type things? So.
We have been able. It's a little bit of a one-off scenario because it really depends on where the clinicals were taking place. Most of our partners have said, "Come on, they can put on PPE. If they're going into the healthcare field, they're going to have to learn this. They might as well learn it now." So if their parents were okay with it, and then the provider was the client was okay with it, we've been able to roll a lot of those and continue on. And generally, that's been the case. Of course, medical field has been hit hard, and sometimes it's all hands on deck wherever we can get help, we find help. But that's been good. Of course, welding and some of those have been a challenge. We've supplemented where we could. We spent some of our ESSER 1.0 money that we received from the feds in the summer. We received it to add online instruction in our CTE courses. Again, CTE courses and science labs are hard to replicate over video, or teleconferencing. But they've really, I would say our CTE teachers have done a tremendous job of adjusting so that when our kids are on a hybrid schedule, they're still able to get the face-to-face time and focus on the activities, the hands-on activities, and then work on some of the book work or other things while they're through Google Classroom or while they're at home.
I could see that it being a challenge that they want to do some chemistry experiment at home and blowing up their house. So I could see that we probably have to.
I suspect that most parents would frown on home experimentation or welding at home, probably.
Yes, I'd say that probably they would like to not come home from work and their house be destroyed from whatever extra activity they were trying to do. So.
Yeah, I have an 18-year-old daughter, so she's pretty safe. If I had a 17 or 18-year-old son, I would probably watch a lot closer on what was going on virtual learning days.
Yes, I had daughters and sons, and I would say that the sons you would need to watch out a little bit more for. So, but they all ended up surviving. That's right. That's the good thing. So
that's right.
So they graduated, they made it out, and they had all their fingers and toes. So we were good. But well, I do want to thank all of the teachers and the challenges that they face and what they've been able to overcome has been great. Again, they also have to deal with the side of the frustrated parent because I've worked all day and I've got to come home and help my child. And I'm usually not too happy when I'm already frustrated and you get them at that level where they're so frustrated and just ready to give up. So commend everybody on every side of that. So next week starts full instruction. In classroom. So I'm hoping that from there we'll go into a much smoother end of the year. And so what about teacher vaccines? I don't know if they've addressed that with Sumner County and with the state of Tennessee. What are their plans for that? And do you have teachers that are really interested in that as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think the overwhelming majority of our teachers and staff beyond teachers, our bus drivers, they're very interested in the vaccine. We've applied and are approved to be able to distribute the vaccine with our one-to-one healthcare providers, with our clinics, and we're just as soon as we get the vaccines, we'll be ready to roll. We have a plan to vaccinate as many teachers as we can, or staff as quickly as we can. We just once we get the vaccines, we'll be ready to roll.
Well, that's great. I do know that is the struggle. We're not getting a huge amount of vaccines, but as they're pumping out everything that's coming into Sumner County, they're pushing out. So hopefully it won't be long and they'll be able to do that, especially with the new vaccine coming out. So hopefully we'll be able to get that underway. So, and what about COVID numbers throughout your schools? Have they been, I know that was another challenge. So not only do I have online students, I have my students that are full-time in classroom, but then I have students that have been quarantined, not because they're sick, maybe because they had contact. So, I've got 3 different scenarios that everybody's on a different level. And so again, those are more challenges that they've had to face. But what has, in the grand scheme of things, where are we on our school numbers and how does that look?
School numbers are, I haven't seen we calculate it by the week. We submit that to TDOE. It's a publicly accessible. They have a COVID website where you can track the number of staff and students by the district. Back in late November, as we anticipated after Thanksgiving and that stretch between Thanksgiving and Christmas, our numbers definitely spiked in terms of our numbers have always been pretty manageable in terms of staff and students with COVID. I mean, we'd like for no one to have it. That group of kids that are and staff that are quarantined because of close contact has been, it's just that's been the part that really has caused us to stay up at night trying to figure out how we can provide them the best educational opportunities, because it doesn't really fit any of the categories that we'd anticipated when we were planning this summer. So I know that's been a constant source of frustration for parents. And, we've had some kids that have been close contacted 2 or 3 times and had to stay home. And that's just, it's tough on families. And we understand trying to, I'm happy the CDC came out with new guidelines after Christmas that allow us, after 7 days, you can get a test and then come back if it's negative. And so cutting 4, 5, 6 days off of that quarantine time has been huge for everybody, for us and for families and for students. Cause I know, students are frustrated when they get quarantined and have to, and there are a few that I'm sure don't mind staying at home, but the overwhelming majority of kids want to come to school. So, right now since Christmas, our numbers have been in steady decline. I think the 3 virtual days and then having that little bit of break after New Year's, and I really think everybody did a better job over Christmas of not congregating in large numbers. Where I think in Thanksgiving we were a little more lax, and we saw that spike in the numbers. But our numbers have been pretty much in a steady decline over the month of January and into February. And so we're hoping that will continue as we come back into school. I will say I saw a study the other day that said that with middle school and high school kids, their rate of transfer of COVID is less when they're in school than when they're out of school, which I think if you've ever, I was a high school principal. High school kids out of school don't stay at home and isolate themselves. They find their way to each other, which I have no doubt if I were 16 or 17, I'd have done the same thing.
I agree. It's again, they desire that interaction with of their own age. So and then they're more mobile. They they don't always have to have a parent there. So
right.
I do think that being in school can help with some of that as well. You have a little bit more control over it.
Well, routine, and like our custodians look like Ghostbusters at times when they're spraying things down. I mean, I would say like our rates of strep have dropped to almost negligible numbers, which normally we fight strep and flu and everything, and that's been really manageable this year because I think people have worn masks and we've sprayed everything that moves, and our custodians and support staff have done a tremendous job of keeping the buildings clean. So I feel confident with our kids coming back that we can. Obviously, with a pandemic, we're mitigating risk constantly, but I feel like our people have done a great job and our kids have done a great job, and teachers. So hopefully we can continue to keep those numbers down as we return fully.
Well, and as you mentioned, buses, those are a difficult way to space people out. I mean, public transportation in general, school buses, any type of bus transportation, the subways, the airplanes, when people are getting on those are the hardest ones to do any kind of separating from. So they wear their mask on the bus and do the best they can. But as you know, that's always a difficult area too. So one thing I do remember seeing something about the food. Are you still doing the food for providing food for those students that are in home?
So the federal government has provided, they basically allow us to give free lunches to everyone this year for the remainder of this year. So what have kids that are learning at home, because of the nature of the rules and the waivers that we've received from the federal government that funds the overwhelming majority of school lunch programs, they have to physically come in, but most of our schools have set up like a drive-through type operation. So if a kid that's learning virtually that didn't feel safe being in school, they don't have to actually come into the building, but they've set up a way for them to reserve lunches. So it is available. And then, of course, the good thing is because, there are a lot of kids that historically are on free and reduced lunch, but then there are a lot of families that have lost jobs and lost income and wages as a result of COVID and layoffs and reduced hours and things like that. So by being free for everyone, I think it's helped a lot of families, and we've seen a substantial increase in the number of kids that are eating at school, which is fantastic. We always want to make sure, and we're able, it's another thing that excites me about being back full time for so many of our kids. They get 2 hot meals a day through school. They receive a lot of their services through school. So, when we go completely virtual or in a hybrid setting, it limits their access to those services, even when we do the best we can to feed through pickup lines and things like that. So I'm excited to get everybody back because it lets us provide those services and meals.
Well, that is always a plus as well, because there are so many that do not have that opportunity. And I know that I learn better when I have a full stomach. So I know that's very important for the kids as well. So.
Well, and so many of our community partners as well works, churches and other groups that provide supplementary supports for families on weekends and things like that. It's hard for them to distribute those good, we're so tied to the backbone that the school provides in a community that getting back full time, will help those also. And we're very appreciative of our community partners.
Yes, and I know that you have those in every city. Portland has several. I mean, we have 9 schools within this, demographic area here that we provide with backpacks for back to school bash and things like that. So, I mean, that's a lot of students and a lot of kids, and it takes a village, and we have a great village in all of the areas.
And Portland really does have an outstanding village, very supportive of our schools and really supportive of our kids, which is really a testament to the community in Portland.
Well, anything else out there that you'd like to let everybody know that's coming up or what's going on? And maybe testing. Is there any the TCAP testing and things like that? Are they going to be doing that?
We will be having TCAP testing. There's no grade assigned for a student this year. It will not be counted against teachers. We want to be able to give the test just so we use that data to kind of plan and prepare for how we help students to learn. So I know, all of us grow weary of all the testing. I feel everyone's pain on that, but the testing, it is important in the sense that it gives us a snapshot of where our kids are. It's not the only variable that we look at, but it is great data that we can look at to try to help our kids. And so it's good this year to take it because it's not going to be used for accountability, but it just gives us an insight into what we can do to better support our kids.
Well, it always serves as a great benchmark to know online this was an area that was struggling, because you'll probably find that there are certain aspects of math, say, or one of the other, that there are some things that are just almost impossible to get through online learning. So so hopefully it'll be able, like you say, to have a benchmark and know where you have to ramp up in some areas to keep them on track to get them through.
Yeah.
So. But no, we do appreciate you and all that's going on there. You all do a great job. We do have a great school system here in Portland and Sumner County, and the students are our future. So and we're building them. I know that a lot of times people wanted to talk about the millennials, and they wanted to give a little complaining towards them, and I say we created them, so you really can't complain with it,
Right.
So but they complained about us too when we come along, because we were different from what they were. But yes, it is very interesting, that we want to create some great leaders, because they're going to be in your position someday, and
absolutely
and continuing forward. So we do appreciate you. And again, is there anything else that information the parents might need to know?
I can't think of anything right now, but if you'll check our social media and everything, we try to keep that current. And then, of course, our website, and then local school web pages are always the most current for the things that most affect our students directly.
Well, and we try to share everything from the school system so that we can they can keep that out there, because y'all do a great job of putting things out on social media, and it's one of our best tools to get information out.
Yeah, it really is. Well, thank you so much for having me. If there's anything that we can do, just let us know.
Thank you, Scott. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.